Okay, Don, you told me your name. Tell me again. Donald Ray York Jr. And your date of birth?
It's 20 September 1952.
September 20th, 52. Where were you born?
Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus. And but you are presently at 2518. What is this street?
Scioto Trail.
2518 Scioto Trail in Portsmouth, Ohio.
Right.
In fact, you live right across from my daughter. She's 2525 right there.
Oh, right over here.
Yeah, right across from you. And what's your occupation?
Chaplain.
Chaplain. Where are you employed as a chaplain?
Southern Ohio Correctional Facility.
Okay, and that's what we know as prison here, Lucasville
Right.
prison, the maximum security prison. How much education do you have?
I have a 4-year bachelor's degree, a 2-year master's in psychology, 3-year master of divinity, a doctor of ministry, and 2 years clinical pastoral education, national teaching mental health.
What was your bachelor's degree in?
It was a double major, religion and psychology.
Where did you go to undergraduate school?
Trevecca Nazarene College in Nashville, Tennessee.
And then you received a master's degree in psychology?
Correct.
Or what?
Yes.
Okay, where did you get that?
Middle Tennessee State University in
Okay.
Murfreesboro, Tennessee.
And then your doctorate of divinity?
Master of Divinity.
Master? Where was that?
Vanderbilt University in Nashville, Tennessee.
But did you say you had a doctorate?
Doctor of Ministry, that was from Asbury Seminary.
Okay. Now, are you married, single, widowed, divorced, separated, all the above, or what?
Pretty close. Married, 4 daughters.
4 daughters? Okay. Well, tell me your children's names, starting with the oldest.
Ashley, Brittany, Courtney, Delaney.
How old is Ashley?
She's 20.
20? So is she out of the home now on her own, or what?
Sort of.
Sort of?
Half and half.
What does she marry, going to school, or?
She just got engaged and she's from Ohio State.
Okay. What is her major?
It was equine science, and that was like a 2-year degree.
Okay.
And so she went through that, and now she's in some sort of business management, hoping to hook the agricultural equine science in.
I know it's hard to keep track of their majors. My son's, I tell you.
I think she wants to major racetrack or something.
That's right. Churchill Downs. Now your next daughter is how old?
Brittany, she's 18.
Okay, and she's still in school? Or?
She's a senior in high school.
Okay, going to Portsmouth?
She Grove City High School.
She goes to Grove City?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's a pretty long drive in the morning, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
For real, or does she live up there?
She's living up there.
In Grove City?
I have one here, and the other 3 are in Grove City.
Oh, I see.
And I originally was at Ohio State, well, I was at Fordham Correctional Institution, which was outside of Grove City. And then I got transferred to Ohio State Penitentiary in Youngstown.
Oh, I
So
see.
I moved up there and got an apartment, and then got transferred down here. So,
Okay. So your wife and your three of your daughters are still up there. And, okay. Now you've got a 20-year-old, 18-year-old, and
Courtney's 15.
15, and
She's in Portsmouth High School.
Courtney's at Portsmouth.
Right. In fact, she's upstairs.
Okay. And then how old is the youngest?
13.
Now, where were you born, Portsmouth?
Columbus.
Columbus, Ohio. I'd like to get a little timeline here, if it's okay. What were your parents' names?
Donald York and Betty York.
Okay. What was your mother's maiden name?
Howell. H-O-W-E-L-L.
Okay. What were her parents' names?
Hazel and Stormy.
Stormy? Stormy Howell. And what was Stormy's maiden name?
Stormy's a man, so I don't think he... His
Stormy
middle
Howell.
name was Banks, so Stormy Banks Howell.
Stormy Banks Howell. And then the grandmother,
Hazel House.
Hazel.
Her maiden name was Barnett.
I don't know why I thought of Hazel as a male name, but her maiden name was Barnett.
Yeah.
Okay.
Does
Now,
Stormy bring up something for you with women?
it must be. At another point in my life, it would have been more appropriate, but things are much better.
Okay.
And your father's parents' names?
Otha and Lily Edith.
was her name?
It was Davis.
Now, when did you go into the service? You are in the Army right now, aren't you, in reserves?
Reserves.
Okay. When did you join the service?
1988.
Okay. And were you commissioned in the right away, or did you
Direct commission as a chaplain.
as a chaplain in the Army? Have you served in just the Army or also others?
I've just been in reserves and National Guard,
Okay.
except when I was in Afghanistan, which was reserves, but it was active duty.
Okay. If you joined in '88, what is your rank now?
Major.
So you are reserve active duty, or is it National Guard?
It was reserve active duty. I'm just normal reserve status now.
Okay. And you were directly commissioned as a chaplain. What was your commission then? Second lieutenant?
First lieutenant.
First lieutenant, they commissioned you? Where would you go for your officer basic training as a chaplain?
Then it was Fort Monmouth, New Jersey. Now it's Fort Jackson, South Carolina.
But did you go to Fort Monmouth?
Yeah.
Okay. How long was that training?
The basic training was phase 1 and phase 2 was 3 months long, and then there was a phase 3 at that time. There was a sustainment phase that you did back here there's a checkoff list of different experiences that you had as a chaplain. You were supposed to experience different things.
I think I'm going to try and get that close because I don't know if your voice is carrying that well. And then I might try to back up here a little bit.
You may talk louder.
Yeah, talk louder too.
Let's just say so.
Right up, okay. Well, I guess that means we'll have to start over. Now, then you went to Fort Monmouth, and then where did you go after that?
Home.
Because you were in the reserves.
Right. I was living in Washington, D.C. at the time.
Were you? What were you doing there?
I was pastoring a church.
Have you always been a minister, pastor, a chaplain? Or have you ever had a real job?
I had a real job. I started right after college. I worked at Utah Detention Center for a while, then went to graduate school. And when I started graduate school, I couldn't do both because it was a nighttime job I had, and it conflicted with classes and things that came. The hours conflicted. But I started working at Coca-Cola then, and I worked there for 5 years. That was pretty much a real job.
What was your, being in the ministry, was your family, was your father like a minister? Or?
My father's an engineer.
He was an engineer as an electrical engineer or something of that nature?
Electrical and mining engineer.
What called you then to the ministry?
Water hoop.
Yeah.
Okay. I was raised in a family that was very church-oriented, very active, and my church kind of directed me that way. They gave me my first minister's license when I was 16.
What church was that?
It was Church of the Nazarene.
Okay.
And so when they sent me to college, they sent me with commentaries and all this stuff, like that's what I was going to do. And when I was in college, I started taking psychology courses and really began to enjoy that a lot more than the religion courses. So when I got out, I was in a real kind of, I really wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so when I worked at Coca-Cola, I went part-time with a master's degree in psychology. And got to a point where I was thinking about going with one of our companies we were connected with, which was Dr. Pepper, in our marketing department and marketing research. But when I kind of looked at my life and what I wanted to be doing, I didn't think that at 65 I wanted to have said I sold soft drinks. I thought it'd be better to feel more comfortable with the other side. So I went to seminary, kind of tentatively just seeing if maybe that's what I want to do, and then through some of the practicums, I tried to get comfortable with that kind of thing. So the calling was more feeling like this is where I should be.
When you were in Washington, D.C., you were attached then to some reserve unit, is that correct? Well, how did that work as a chaplain?
I left Washington, D.C. right after I got out of Fort Monmouth and moved back to Ohio.
Oh, I see.
And I went into the 11th Special Forces Group in Columbus. They had a battalion in Columbus at that time.
The 11th Special Forces Group?
Correct.
Is this the same Special Forces Group that we think of as Special Forces, but they also have a chaplain? I don't follow the Special Forces.
It's special operations.
Uh-huh.
They're we call them Green Berets.
How does a chaplain interact with the other units?
I'm not sure.
Well, you're with the 11th Special Forces.
I was then.
What did you do?
Oh, okay. We did everything from worship services to, for the most part, it was more individual counseling, talking to people. In special operations, sometimes there are tasks that may border on unethical for some people, or morally some issues you have to deal with. And especially those that were in special forces that were very church-oriented, sometimes wanted to talk about some of that. If they were going to do an activity that may present some problems for them, they may want to talk that out. So if you had asked them, I think they said the most important thing about a chaplain is that he's there. Not in particular task, but he's there. And so it was mostly just trying to be a ministry of presence. But what I actually did, spent a lot of time trying to identify, like, especially when we're gone for several weeks at a time, stress and kind of battle fatigue or mental health problems that they may have, that would also connect into spiritual issues. And so I might like serve them breakfast and just talk to each of them as they come through to make sure that they're functioning okay. So it's kind of in the Army, the chaplains are tasked with suicide prevention and also with advising the commander on war crimes, that type of thing. So it's a little bit broader than a pastor of a church would be.
Did you go out in the field with them?
Right. I was at a battalion level, which did not go in the field a whole lot. The companies did, but I went with the companies, so I went in the field.
How long were you with the 11th Special Forces?
I left them for about a year and a half. But altogether, I was there for about a year, left for a year and a half, and then came back for about, I think it was 3 or 4 more years.
Okay. Are they activated now, that group?
No, they were deactivated in, I think it was 1994.
So they don't exist now, is that right?
Right. Don't tell the X-Men.
Don't tell, okay.
They blended into National Guard Special. There used to be two groups of reservists and 2 groups of National Guard, and they ended up doing away with the 2 reserve groups and kept the 2 National Guard groups and expanded them. So.
Who are you attached to now?
I'm with 360 Civil Affairs Brigade.
How long have you been with them?
2 weeks before I went to Afghanistan.
Okay. Well, let me ask you then about Afghanistan. So, when did you go there?
I got into Afghanistan, I think it was November 17th of 2002.
Okay. Where were you before the Civil Affairs Unit? Who were you attached to?
I was with an air defense artillery unit, and
Where were they located?
McConnellsville, Ohio.
That's my son's unit.
Oh, is it?
Yes, it is.
I had been with, when the 11th group deactivated, I went to the 19th Special Forces Group, which was in the Guard. And when I moved to Youngstown, it was 300 and some miles just to get to the battalion, and then I had to go visit the company. So my last drill with them was like 1,100 miles a week. And I felt I was getting too old to do all that. So that's when I switched to the Ohio Guard and was put into that unit. But most of my whole career had been in special operations, and I felt more comfortable in special operations, and that's why I transferred then to 360th, which is also special operations.
Okay.
It's not special forces, but it's part of special operations community.
How long were you with the McConnellsville unit?
4 years.
Okay. See, I'm trying to think when my son entered that unit. He got off active duty was in Kuwait, and then he re-enlisted into the National Guard. I'm trying to think when it was. Maybe he's been there, maybe year 2000 he went there. I don't know. He might have been there then.
Yeah, last couple of years.
So then you went to Afghanistan, and what did you think when you got your orders for Afghanistan? Was that the first time you've ever been deployed?
For any length of time.
Okay. And what did you think when you got orders for that kind of thing?
Well, see, I had just come into the unit, and when I called them for when I should drill, they said, "Did you realize that being activated?" And I said, "No." And so when I got there for the first drill, they said, "We're being activated, but you won't have to go. You can stay and work with the families." That was on Saturday. Then on Sunday, they said, "You're on the battle roster and you're leaving." And so it was about 4 weeks. And then we went to Fort Bragg for 5-6 weeks and then to Afghanistan.
This Civil Affairs Unit, what do they do?
Their goal is to win the hearts and minds of the people. They're the ones who will go into an area and assess villages for needs and try to develop relationships with the political side of things. In Afghanistan, we had teams that were out in the villages and going into villages that hadn't seen Americans before, and a lot of places they work directly with special forces, so that one would do the helping to kind of police the area, and our team would say, "We're here to help you. How can we help build up your community? You show us the Taliban, we'll take them out, and we'll come in and help you build these things that you need, get grants for you to do that." But then we also had teams that were working with, like the Minister of Education, working with the law system, developing laws for the country, and working pretty much at all levels of the country. So it's a civil military operation.
So the Civil Affairs Unit has a chaplain, and what other type of people do they have?
They have, the chaplain of Civil Affairs is very different than any other place. Technically, the Civil Affairs chaplain is a cultural affairs officer, and they're more of traditionally they've been more of an advisor on how religion impacts on what's going on in the country. And they're beginning more to do the pastoral care kind of thing. In that unit, you pretty much have across the board. You have medical teams, you have legal teams, you have police force, guys in the police department, civilian who goes in and helps develop police departments in the communities they're going into. You have everything from well diggers to and people work with sanitation and that type of thing, to pretty much everything. There's a team for almost every major aspect of what you would need to bring a town together that are experts in those areas, engineers, veterinarians, a wide range.
Did you feel that you did any good while you were there for the people?
Well, my job was for the soldiers.
For the soldiers, yes. Okay.
I interacted with the people a lot, but my primary job was to be with the soldiers who were interacting with the people. And in my task, we had teams that were scattered all over Afghanistan. And my task was, I had like about 4 different things I was responsible for. Our headquarters at that time was in Kabul. And I was the component chaplain in Kabul to make sure that they had religious programming. And then we had another chaplain for a unit, so he stayed in Kabul the whole time and worked with them, and I would come back and forth to Kabul. And my main job then was visiting all of our teams that were scattered out and holding services and assessing their needs. I couldn't be there like every Sunday. I was lucky I got to every place pretty much 2 times over 9 months because there's so many different locations, and some places you didn't stay a week or 2 because you couldn't get back out because it was so remote. And so it was kind of making sure they were doing okay spiritually, emotionally, and looking at those things. And then I was also tasked with trying to identify religious leaders in the country and where their education came from, what their background and interests were. And then it was also trying to identify Christian relief organizations in the country, and what they were doing and where they were located.
How was the progress of the rehabilitation and the building up of effort in Afghanistan?
Afghanistan is, there is no infrastructure.
Like roads and bridges and things?
In the major towns, you have stuff, but in Iraq, they're talking about, our electricity's not working, our water system. Well, they don't have that in Afghanistan, so you're starting a whole different level. They're talking about redoing a road that went around the country, but you can't drive every place in Afghanistan. There is a lot of the homes are basically mud, mud or dung and mud and straw. The only electricity that you'll have in villages from a generator to run a loudspeaker for the mosques so they can call out the prayers. We had, I know one location, one of the village leaders was saying we need this water system fixed. It was I think they call it a carash, but it was an aqueduct going from the mountains. And he was saying, we need this fixed. We try to get other people to fix it, and they haven't been able to do it. And our team was saying, well, why haven't they? Why did they stop? No, well, we don't know. And I said, well, how old is this? And he says at least 400 or 500 years old, but it was one of those that Genghis Khan invested with when he came from the country.
Okay.
And I said, have you ever seen it work? And he says, not in my lifetime. So that's their water system that goes back to Genghis Khan. So
They've been trying to get it fixed ever since.
The water doesn't flow very well. So you're talking about doing that. So what some of our teams would assess the needs within the village, and then they would try to link up with American agents, relief agencies that would provide funding for it. And we didn't do any of the actual work. We would hire Afghans to do it to help build their economy. But it would be everything from like clinics to schools to building wells in the community if they had a real problem with water. Wells for irrigation, wells for drinking water.
Did that particular well get fixed?
That wasn't a well. That was
Aqueduct.
It was like miles and miles long.
Oh, I see.
No, I think it was
Beyond
a job,
repair?
or a job that was going to be so expensive. It'd be easier just to drill wells in that area. But I mean, some projects we can't. They were so massive, like building a road around the country is not something that we would do. That's something that their country has to pull together and use funding. It's coming in at a higher level.
Your function was pretty much local, on the local level then, right? I mean, you would go to a village, you would assess their needs. And
Our teams would do that.
Teams would do
Although we did have teams in Kabul that worked with national leaders and would help deal with across the whole country. Like in Karzai and with like Minister of Education, Minister of Health.
Have you met Karzai? Have you met the leader over there?
No, I met some. I didn't meet Karzai. I was gone most of the time out of Kabul. I met like Ismail Khan, who was a warlord in Western Afghanistan. In fact, I got his prayer rug. He came and prayed in our house, and I bought the rug after he left.
You bought it? So that's a souvenir that you have from Afghanistan. Interesting. Were you ever under a threat? Were you ever under gunfire, or did you have to, what happened there?
Hunker down.
You hugged the earth.
Our firepower was far superior than anything they had, and Afghans notoriously are bad shots, and they tend to saw the sights off of their weapons.
They saw off the sights?
Because it bothers them when they carry it, rubs their shoulder. So they're not real accurate. Part of what I did too was to go into areas where there had been some firefights and stuff and help people deal with that. We had one of our teams that had like 19 bullet holes that shot down the side of their vehicle, and two of the guys on a special forces team that was with them were killed, and they rescued them out of the area in which the ambush took place. And so I went down immediately after that to help them, or to help them talk through what's going on. It wasn't uncommon to be in a compound and to be rocketed. Rockets, they're not very accurate. If they land in your compound, you might as well just stay where you are because the next one will never get the same place. So Running didn't make much sense. Anything with small arms, the fire bases that we had enough firepower. They would have taken hundreds of people to overrun fire bases. We did have, like, occasionally people killed guards along the outside perimeter. Those were usually Afghans. We had one of our interpreters had been with us a couple of years. That was
One of your who?
interpreters.
An interpreter?
That was killed about a mile from one of the fire bases. So we had that kind of activity.
In a firefight like that, if you were in it, would you be expected to pick up a weapon? What's the rule for chaplains and shooting back?
Chaplains are non-combatant, and you have non-combatants in the military who can carry weapons as a defense, but chaplains don't even carry them as a defense. However, if you get into a situation where your life is in danger and there's no option, you can take somebody else's weapon to protect yourself, but you're not doing anything on the offensive. I never carried a weapon. I had some beside me at times that were like other people's in the vehicle. There's been times I've been left in the vehicle and they lay a weapon beside me and say, if you need it, here it is. And they come back. So,
Did you ever have to resort to a weapon?
I did.
On your collar, you wear the cross. Is that correct? How were you received? And you would wear that uniform out into the population. How were you received?
We didn't always wear uniforms. I didn't wear a uniform all the time that I went out, or I'd wear a modified uniform. But the cross didn't really, it was not offensive to anybody I met. In fact, probably, I was in one village talking to a guy that was equivalent to the mayor, and we were in this room with about 20 people, and everybody was sitting on the floor drinking tea and talking. And the leader of our team there introduced me as the American mullah, and the mullah is like a leader of the mosque. And the mayor kind of perked up, and he says, through the interpreter, he says, I'm surprised. I didn't know the Americans were religious, or that they had anybody with them that was a religious leader. And he says, that's important for me to know because we take religion very seriously. And even after the meeting, he sent an interpreter out to talk to me to come back anytime that I wanted to, because he thought it was very important that the Americans have religious leaders with them. There were a lot of questions at times, but as far as I didn't run into any situation where anybody seemed to be offended at all. But, in fact, I mean, there's a lot of similarities. In Islam, they believe in Christ. They just believe that we perceive Christ in a different light than what they do. So our heritage is still very similar. But in talking to some other chaplains that got out in the community, they didn't run into any problems either. In fact, when I was leaving, there was an effort to try to link up with a lot more of the mullahs in the community to begin to build support for what was going on.
So you were able to have a dialogue with these folks and mullahs there and converse at an intellectual level with them on things?
Right.
Are we making any headway there, do you think? I mean, are we doing any good? Are we going to win?
I don't know if it's a matter. I mean, we've already won. I mean, we chased out the people we wanted to chase out. They're not going to be able to shoot any or send any terrorists probably from Afghanistan to us. The people are. I think we've gone way beyond. I mean, we're there now trying to help people begin to pull themselves together after being through the Taliban so many years, and then after being through the Russians. And I mean, there's still houses that are all blown to pieces from the Russians. There's Russian tanks and aircraft scattered all over the country. It's the most heavily mined country in the world. Bagram, where our main base is the most heavily mined community in the world. And you have kids, I've seen kids coming with hands blown off and stuff where they would accidentally grab a tripwire, picking up wood, or accidentally step on something. And we're helping clean a lot of that stuff up and work with relief agencies that are doing that. You have people, I've asked a couple times, how do the people perceive us? And I was trying to get the Afghans to talk, and like, you know, the Americans are silly because they want to do this or they want to do that. And the only response they give is, well, they smile all the time.
Americans?
Yeah, and it was so different from the Russians. And they perceive the Russians as being mean and hurtful, where the Americans were to help. And the people who were used to being beaten, and I mean, in Kabul, there's a stadium where we just did mass executions of people. You don't have that kind of stuff going on anymore. And the people can farm and herd, and they don't have to worry about being shot. They don't have to worry about rockets and that kind of thing hitting them. And Americans have brought that around so that the people have the freedom to be what they want to be. Now, whether they take advantage of that, I mean, they're coming from kind of a welfare state and a mentality where they've not been able to do a lot for themselves. Whether they can pull out of that. And you're talking about mindset changes, and some people are talking about several generations before people can really see what kind of opportunities they have.
Did you encounter any of the poppy fields there, the opium fields that they were talking about? That's a growing...
Did I encounter them? I saw them,
yeah. Yeah, and what were the farmers... I mean, they were doing that for a living, weren't they? Mm-hmm. That's all they could do, right?
No, they can grow other things, but...
I mean, it's more profitable.
A lot more profitable.
Yeah.
I talked to one family, and they said, you know, it's really difficult. We don't understand why we can't grow the poppies. And we make so much more money on the poppies than we do on the regular crop of grown. And I said, what does poppies do to people? And their first response was, well, it makes them beggars. He said, people get hooked on it, they don't work anymore, and then they just have to beg for everything. Although I think they send a lot of it to Pakistan. And I said, it must be difficult to know that you can grow something that can make you rich, but it's destroying people's lives, or you can grow something that you won't be rich with. And they said, yeah, it's a real struggle. So, I mean, there's these financial issues. And I mean, there's a different perception of corruption, a different perception of what's right and wrong sometimes among the people there. And, you know, for some of them, it's fine to use poppy money to go to the Hajj for religious reasons and to pay your way. And where in the United States you perceive that as being something that is immoral, for them they didn't see it in that way. But for them, if a woman had her face uncovered, it was immoral. We didn't see it like that.
Are they still wearing the burqa over there a great deal?
Yeah. It depends on what part of the country you're from. Kandahar, a lot more, and Kabul, you see more women with them. And behind closed doors, they'll take it off. Right in the women's hospital, they'll walk around for the men without it. When they walk out, they'll put it back on there.
Mm-hmm. Did you get down to Kandahar?
Yeah. I pretty much went over all of Afghanistan.
All of it?
Not.
Well.
Most of it.
Mari Sharif, did you get up there?
Yeah.
Up there? Did you see the fortress where they had the that sort of thing?
No, I didn't go over to it. But my main focus was to be with our guys.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the problem is you had people wanting to sightsee, and I felt my job was not to make them think I came for any other reason to be with them. I went to Mazar-i Sharif a couple times, and then also not real far from there, we also had people in Kunduz, and I went to Herat a couple times there, and I went up there. We also have a base in Uzbekistan, which is on the Mazar-i Sharif. In Lahore probably 7 or 8 times. And then there's fire bases in Daewoo where Omar was from, Malawi Omar, who was head of the Taliban. And I was there probably 4 weeks, 3 or 4 different times. And south of that, Spin Bulldog, which is around the Pakistan border, skins near Pakistan border on over east of there. Coast is near the Pakistan border, and that's the governor of Coast is an Afghan that's a good friend of Karzai, who brought him in, and he's either an anthropology or sociology professor in Melbourne, Australia.
Okay.
And he came in. At the time, last time I saw him, he'd been there for 14 months and hadn't been back home. And he talked a lot about the history of the Hanafi Muslims, which is a Sunni group in that a lot out of Pakistan, and that came by way of India. And he was talking about their history and stuff, and brought it on board for me to visit with.
Interesting. Are you glad you went over there?
Yeah, it was fun. I probably had the best job because I could just go wherever I wanted to, just hop a helicopter or a plane or whatever.
Right.
I wasn't stuck in one location.
When did you come back?
1st of August, we came back to Fort Bragg.
Okay. And so then, does it appear that you might be reactivated again or deployed again?
I'm on the battle roster to go back in August for a year.
To Afghanistan?
Yeah. But with the Army, you just never know.
I was going to say August. That's next year, too. But that could be sooner, right?
No, I don't think so. They have our brigades are like in a rotation. And so there's a brigade over there. Now another one will be going in after that, and then we'll follow them.
Would it be possible that you would go to Iraq?
Probably not, because they have a rotation for Iraq.
Okay. Well, let's see. You got anything else you'd like to talk about, Don? You got any tattoos you want to talk about?
No, some of the chat was trying to get some.
Did they? Wasn't too much sacrament wine or something?
Well, I don't know. I guess they were all hyped up when they got back home.
Oh.
I can't take the pain.
Okay. What kind of souvenirs did you bring back? You have a prayer rug.
That's right.
Is this a prayer rug?
No, the prayer rug's about this big. I don't have it in this house.
Okay. But this
That's
rug...
a prayer rug over there.
Oh, okay.
I got that in David Rue. That's where Omar's from.
Okay.
For, I think it was $4. And in fact, I got about 12 of them. The interpreter that we had that was killed negotiated and bought those for me.
Oh, okay. Was he assassinated, or did he die in an accident, or
It was a religious leader who killed him.
a religious leader killed him?
Probably because of his connection with us. And he had gone into a town, into the main town, which is about a mile away. And there's no roads, it's just like through the desert. You kind of make your own road. And on his way back, he was ambushed, and 3 guys, apparently led by one of them was the religious leader. They shot him, and then they stabbed him in the heart, and then they crushed his skull, and then they left him. And, then a guy came back to the fire base and said that somebody's out there in your vehicle, and so one of the teams went out and brought him back in. And they said when they pulled him out, it was like taking the plug out of the oil pan in the car.
Oh, gosh.
And he was. I think part of the reason it was kind of hard is because he was kind of the reason we were over there. He was 23 years old, had been an engineering student, and was interpreting for us to make enough money to go back to school.
Oh, that is hard.
And he's about 5'4".
And a religious leader. What's the... I know they have their own rationale for doing those crazy things, but I don't know.
Yeah, I don't understand it completely. You know, Omar, who was the religious leader in charge of the Taliban, which is a very fundamentalist group, and I think it's a lot like the religious gangs you'll find in a prison. It's not so much your religious faith as it is the power that you can get in having that structure there, and then you use religion as kind of a cover for it. And I think it's just that type of thing. I think Omar, last I heard, Omar was in northern Pakistan trying to put together teams to go back in and do stuff. And yeah, it's hard to understand. And religiously, I mean, they're Muslim, but in the country they don't have a lot of education, and most of the religious leaders can't read Arabic, so they can read the words, but they don't know what they mean. And so they're not able to read the Quran and even understand the Quran. So their interpretation The Quran comes from their father, it came from their father, it came from their father, and they were all mullahs, and it runs in the family. So it may not always be quite accurate, or it may be easily manipulated by some other religious leader who will come in who has more knowledge. And I mean, you have in some areas very strong, well-educated religious leaders, but you also have a lot of people that can be changed. And there was one report of teams coming in some of the small villages and saying the Americans are here to change their religious faith. And so if you have a Christian relief organization in there trying to, say, bring the gospel to people in a country that is Muslim, and I mean it's against the law to convert, that just reinforces that. And then if an American soldier comes in, they just may shoot him because he's trying to change them and force them into something else.
Are there some of those religious organizations over there handing out tracts?
There's religious organizations that could have the potential, and there's religious organizations that they have set arguments on that. And at the beginning when the Taliban was there, you had the two girls from Texas.
Right.
Had to be extracted by a special forces team. They were shown the Jesus video.
Mm-hmm.
Another organization that's back, is very active, was kicked out by the Taliban for proselytizing. And
Who was that?
They do clinics.
They do clinics.
Yeah, they have eye clinics and stuff. I can't really say that.
You wouldn't tell me their name? Why not? They're not the Nazarenes, are they?
No.
Okay.
No, they're not a specific church group. They're a religious relief organization.
Oh, that's not like a church group.
They're not a particular church
Okay.
denominational group. But
Like Jehovah's or something.
No.
Are Jehovah's there?
no, people that were there were primarily doing relief. Some had changed their names, taken the Christian out to help them do that. But you had like Christian Christian Relief, but they had changed their name. You had Samaritan's Purse, who's Franklin Graham, Billy Graham's son. They were there building schools and doing some different sort of relief stuff. Campus Crusade for Christ was doing some things. You had the Lutheran Church working through various groups. Catholic Relief Services were very active in a lot of areas. But you had some of the groups that you had these warlords that were kind of being moved into political positions like governors and cabinet members and things. And if there's something that they want or a problem, you don't know that they can easily say the Americans are trying to do this and they're trying to proselytize our people and use that as a wedge in negotiations with things. We had one governor that was saying, well, these people are proselytizing, and it's hard to know whether they really were or not. We had one group that said, no, we were not proselytizing. All we were doing was passing out these boxes at Christmas time, which was full of religious literature. So, you know.
Were you able to communicate with the women over there, the Afghan women, and see how they felt about?
No.
That was not allowed.
Yeah, we had women on our teams that could talk to them.
Okay.
But a man wouldn't go up.
Just strike up a conversation with the woman would not happen.
No. Not unless you're talking about like a professor in school or something like that.
No.
The women are tend to be very illiterate. And
Very
that's
what?
Illiterate. And that's a big concern for some of the Afghan women who are educated to really help the women in Afghanistan. And so when you go into a community, the men would come out, the boys, and you have little girls that come out. But the women, you'd see, they pop their head over top of the wall of the compound to look out, and then if you look over to them, they'll drop back down.
Did you see the site where the Buddha was?
No, that's the one place I didn't go. We had people there, and one of the other chaplains went up there. It's about, I think it was about a 6-8 hour drive from Kabul.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty bad. It's about, I saw pictures of it, talked to our team who was there.
Are they trying to reconstruct that?
It's like putting Humpty Dumpty together. I mean,
Probably.
and mean, it's all pieces.
Very small pieces too.
And,
Very
but you have the Buddha holes. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the shape of the Buddha with just no Buddha in there, just rocks at the bottom.
good.
And there may, someone, I was talking to somebody not too long ago, that there's like three main Buddhas, different, one's bigger, kind of like Mama, Papa, and Baby Buddha. And then there's one that some people say is buried right in that same area. It wasn't destroyed, so they don't know. I mean, there could be another Buddha that's there.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to say? Do you stay in touch with, of course, I suppose you do. Do you still go to your reserve meetings? And you're in the reserves of the Guard?
Reserve.
Reserve. You still go to reserve meetings?
We're very active. We just had, some of the guys I came back with are being deployed right now.
Are they?
I was back at their unit. Our units are scattered in New York, Tennessee, North Carolina, South Carolina. And so I was at one of our units that's in the process of being deployed right now. And they've already left their home to go to train up to go. And we do have units under us in Iraq. So we're still active trying to support that.
Anything else?
I'm happy. I'm happy to be home.
Not bad. Well, thanks for
thank you.
everything you did.
Well, thank you.
This will be on the shelf at the Portsmouth Public Library. And you are on tape 41. And the guy preceding you was a World War II veteran.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah, I try to get those guys as much as I can for obvious reasons. And he was in the Navy and he was in the Mediterranean during the war.
So it sounds like you're going to have the opportunity for a lot from Iraq in about a year when all these guys.
Well, I was talking to Charlie Miller about that, and he's going to try and get together a group before they leave, and I can have a group session.
There's I forget his name, but he works in the mailroom. There was a Marine in Desert Storm.
Really?
And now he's going back to Iraq.
Oh, he's going to Iraq.
And so that'd be
As a Marine?
No, I don't. He's in. I think he's in the same reserve.
216.
Guard unit. All these guys are in.
Yeah.
So
There's
that'd be interesting.
a dozen or more of them going.
Well, after he comes back, especially, it'd be interesting.
Well, that's what I told Charlie Miller. I want a group of them before they leave. They'll be there about 15 months, maybe more, and then get the group when they come back.
Yeah, unless the election's coming up.
Okay. Well, I'm going to turn this thing off.
C-17s, sometimes on Blackhawks or Chinooks.
When you say you were flying back and forth, you were going from base to base?
Right, yeah. I'd come back to Kabul every 2 to 4 weeks and do another plan of where I was going, and I'd stay back out. And I flew like on Royal Air Force, had some units there, so I flew on with them. And then the Italians, theirs was, I think, Lyra.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a whole different perspective of flying with the British and with the Italians than it was with the Americans.
Does that say the Italians are more happy at their work?
Well, Ralph Nader hadn't been over there, I don't think. And so in the United States, you got all these precautions. You have to sit down, you have to be buckled, you have to do all of this. You know, Italian guys, they don't care. And they're smoking as they load stuff on, and all this. And the C-130s for the Italians and the C-130s for the British were newer than ours, and they're more powerful. And so I think they said it was like 30% more powerful than ours were. So when you come into some of these bases, they would, the U.S. would kind of spiral down as a defensive measure. I'm not sure why it's a defensive measure, but they do this weird thing, and depending on how tight the circle is, some people get sick coming down. Well, the Italians and British didn't do that. And I was like setting up in the cockpit on 30 coming on the British, and they'd say, you need to take pictures, and next thing you know, you're hitting the head on the ceiling, or they say, you don't need to be buckled. And what they do is instead of doing these spiral deals, they just follow the terrain of the ground. So you're coming out for, I don't know how many miles, for like 10 or 15 minutes, following the mountainside. So as the mountains go, you're going like this, you're like sideways, and then you're going back sideways like this. And then at some point, they have designated as you go out of the community or out of the area, then they go straight up. So you're going like this, like this, like this, and then shoot like this, and out. And our planes aren't powerful enough apparently to do that, so they do a different technique and get out. And man, it's like
That'd be quite an experience.
they're like the American aircraft.
Our soldiers there, are they top of the line? I mean, they must be highly trained and motivated.
Yeah,
Would you say?
I think so. I mean, it's
Do you get any
reservists and guards especially.
reservists and guard?
Yeah, and they're.
You don't get any of them shooting themselves in the foot type of thing, or
Yeah, just the active duty.
just
You had. I mean, you had accidents, but it was more like we had one soldier that an RPG blew up in his hand, blew half his face off and tore off his hand. It was the equipment. It wasn't. It was the equipment was defective. And they put in some safety rules about not playing with that equipment anymore. But he was, I mean, he had a purpose in doing it, and it wasn't like he pulled the trigger or something that wasn't supposed to. And you'd have some accidents where people would forget that their weapons were loaded. Anytime you go into a compound or a location, you have a firing barrel and shoot it. And so usually the worst thing that happened is that they would shoot it into the barrel, which was a major issue. You weren't supposed to do that, but I mean, it was, no one was hurt, because that's what it was for. But you did have some of the coalition forces shot each other.
really? Like the
By
Italians,
accident.
or? Okay.
So I think it was the Koreans. One got shot in the stomach, and one in the chest.
Gee. Were any of the women getting pregnant so they could come home, or any of that sort of thing?
I'm aware of. The fact sex was illegal.
Well, that stopped that.
That was a general order. No pornography, no sexual activity unless you're married to the person. You did have married couples over there.
Did you?
Yeah. So I mean, I'm sure it didn't stop it, but it probably cut down some because people watched out before.
They did what?
They were more sensitive to it, and you would be disciplined for it.
How about beer or alcohol? Could you go to the post and drink beer? Cold beer?
That was part of the general order under sexual activity was no alcoholic beverages, but the coalition forces didn't have the same rules, and so like the British in Kabul, you had a British compound, and you had ISAF, which was that international security force. You had the British, and you had the Italians, you had French and Spanish. They were there, and I think pretty much of the coalition forces, they were allowed to have like 2 cans of beer in one setting.
Some of that
We
must have
weren't.
found its way to the Americans, wouldn't you think?
I didn't see any of
Of
it.
course. Here comes the chaplain, put that under the...
Yeah, I think it was. Well, there's a lot of drugs, but I don't think that was a major issue either. I mean, you had some people that got caught. It was very minor. A lot of marijuana they grow a lot of marijuana over there.
Yeah.
I don't believe it was illegal when I was over there. So, I mean, I went into one store that was a money exchange to buy some stuff in this little town. They had bags of opium up on the counter, and outside that community, this guy had said, "Could you go over to this facility? I want to show you this well that they're building in front of my house." And his house is several buildings inside a big walled area. And we walked into the walled area. He was drying marijuana all over the compound. I mean, it was just a huge amount of marijuana drying. And, I mean, he wasn't trying to hide it. I mean, he just said, "Can you go over there?" And he knew we'd see it. And it's just not an issue. And you'd see some of the Afghan guards. I mean, they were high a good part of the time. They were popping marijuana seeds. You want some?
Really?
You said no. But I I think there was very little problem with the Americans. I think they were just, I don't know the situation with Iraq because that happened when I was in Afghanistan. And so I don't know all that led up to it in that. But the reason we were in Afghanistan, people were very supportive of it because, we had the Pentagon, we had the Twin Towers blowing up, and that's the reason we were in Afghanistan. And I think there were very few people that were opposed or couldn't see a reason for us to be there. So I think you have a sense of, a lot of people had a real sense of pride in the fact that they were there, the purpose that they had for being there. And I think they saw that they had a mission in what they were doing. Mm-hmm. It's not really good to be in a combat zone high. It's not the
Probably
safest
not.
thing in the world. I mean, it's really kind of stupid.
Where were you when the Twin Towers were hit? What were you doing?
I was in Columbus.
Were you?
I was,
It's the morning,
I was
so.
probably asleep. Right?
Okay.
I mean, first time I knew about it was I had the computer up and I thought it was, I didn't pay any attention. I said, nah, nothing like that happened. So I just kind of forgot about it. And then somebody said, no, yeah, it's
For real? Did you have a sense then that you knew what was going to happen? You were going to be part of this struggle, this war?
Well, I mean, you just never know. Cause I was in the military when Desert Storm happened, and around when some other things happened. So you don't know how big things are going to get. And the way that we approach things under Clinton versus under Bush has been very different. So, but soon after that, I was in the Guard at that time, and I was activated right after that to go help mobilize units. And so I was living down here and had to go up to Youngstown. We had to help activate some MP units and some infantry units. But it was all for Operation Open Eagle and to protect. The MPs were going to the airports, and the infantry was, I think they were guarding the nuclear plant or something. At the time, that was secret what they were actually doing. So I think they may have went to Michigan to guard the Ohio State Michigan game.
Exactly.
The national treasure.